once lived two brothers called Boris and Ivan. These two brothers were very poor. They never had enough to eat, and what was worse, it seemed to them that they would never be able to improve their lot if they stayed in the village they had lived in all their lives. Try as they might to better their position, it was just impossible. They spent many hours trying to devise plans to make enough money to support themselves, but at last they reached only one conclusion. There's nothing for it, the older brother Boris declared sorrowfully. I shall have to try and find work elsewhere, while you, Ivan, must stay at home and look after the house. The two brothers were very sorrowful at the thought of parting, but they realized that this was the only thing they could do. So, bidding each other a fond farewell, Boris set off with high hopes to find his fortune elsewhere. He hadn't travelled too far when he came to a prosperous-looking farm. The first thing he saw was the farmer belabouring a maid. The man certainly looked a bad-tempered old rogue, but beggars can't be choosers. I'm sure the owner of such a farm will need extra help now that harvest time is near, he thought to himself, and he walked up to the front door. Boris explained to the farmer that he was looking for a job, that he was hard-working and conscientious, and would be prepared to work long hours for his wage. Well, you look hefty enough, the farmer begrudgingly conceded. I'll take you on a trial basis if you agree to my conditions. Firstly, you must work for me until autumn, when the first leaves fall, for which I'll pay you 10 gold pieces. Secondly, if you lose your temper or shirk your work in any way, you will have to pay me 50 gold pieces. But my third condition looks after your interests. If I should become angry with you, I shall pay you 100 gold pieces. That deal sounded very unfair to Boris. How can I promise to pay you 50 gold pieces when I don't earn a penny in the world? In that case, you will just have to work for me until you earn enough to pay me. But that'll take 7 years, said Boris. Do you agree? Take it or leave it. Boris had no option but to agree, and the farmer brought out a contract outlining all the conditions he had made. Everything happened so quickly, Boris was totally confused, and reluctantly put his name to it. The first cock had barely finished crowing the following morning when the farmer started shouting at Boris to wake up and start working. He led the young man to a broad field full of growing corn and ordered, "First, you must hoe away the weeds in this field. Then you must tie the vines in the field yonder. Next, you must mow the meadow over the hill. And you must carry on working for as long as there is light." Boris set to with a will. All day he laboured without pause or rest, for he was determined to prove to the farmer that he could keep his side of the bargain. He tended the vines as the hot sun beat down on his head. It was very tiring work, but he just set his teeth and carried on. Even as the sun slowly slid behind the western hills, Boris could still be seen working hard mowing the meadow. He carried on steadily until the sun had well and truly set, just to prove his point to the farmer. Darkness had fallen by the time Boris picked up his tools and wearily stumbled back to the farmhouse. What a hard day it had been. Boris hoped that the following days would not be so hard, for although autumn was only a few months off, he didn't know whether he could continue to work at such a pace. However, he remembered the poverty he had left and was determined to stick it out, come what may. Imagine his astonishment then, as he wearily stumbled into the farmhouse when the farmer called out, "What? Are you back from the fields already?" Boris looked up from the bench where he had collapsed and stared at the farmer in great surprise. But, he stammered, "the sun has been down for some time now." "The sun may have set," the farmer smirked, "but what about the moon? Our agreement was that you should work as long as there was light." Wearily, Boris looked up. Reluctantly, he had to admit there was still light, and his face fell. "You're not angry, are you?" asked the farmer quickly, and Boris, remembering the terms of the contract, hastened out of the room. Wearily, he returned to the fields, where he continued working right through the night. No sooner had the moon finally set than he saw the eastern sky grow lighter and lighter as it heralded a new day. But by now he had reached the end of his tether. Throwing down his hoe, he collapsed on the ground to sleep the sleep of utter exhaustion. He was only roused when he felt the farmer roughly shaking him by his shirt. "Wake up! Wake up!" the man cried. "Can't you see it's a fine new day, and we can't have you shirking, can we?" Angrily, Boris leapt to his feet. "Curse your field, and curse your bread, and curse your money!" he cried. "A dog wouldn't stand this treatment." The farmer drew the contract from his pocket, while poor Boris, appalled at what his hasty words had let him in for, wept tears of anguish. He had no alternative but to arrange with the farmer to pay off the debt of 50 gold pieces by working for nothing. And it was a very dejected Boris who returned to the home he had left with such high hopes just 2 days before. He sadly recounted to Ivan all that had happened to him. "I've been duped by a villain," he concluded, "but a debt is a debt, and somehow I must pay it." Ivan listened intently as Boris described how the farmer had treated him, and sat deep in thought as he pondered on this story. How were they ever going to pay back the greedy farmer? "We've got to bait the hook so we can land this big fish well and truly," he announced at last. "I shall be the bait, and the farmer's own greed will be the hook." Ivan eagerly outlined his plan to Boris, who listened with some doubt. Could his younger brother succeed where he had failed? But in the end he had to agree it was worth a try, for they had to cancel his debt with this farmer, or else they would have to work all their lives to pay off the debt. The very next morning saw a new labourer appear at the farm. It was none other than Ivan. He walked humbly up the path to the fine farmhouse and hesitantly knocked on the door. When the farmer appeared, Ivan meekly asked him for work. The farmer replied abruptly, "If you're prepared to work hard, I can give you work, but only on 3 conditions. 1, you work for me until autumn when the first leaves fall. 2, if you lose your temper or stop your work, you pay me 50 gold pieces. And 3rd, I'll pay you 100 gold pieces if I lose my temper with you." "I don't think the penalties are big enough for either of us," said Ivan. "If I stop working or get angry, I pay you 100 gold pieces. If you get angry, you pay me 200 gold pieces." The farmer couldn't refuse the fantastic opportunity of having someone work for so long for so little. Before the green young man could change his mind, the greedy farmer ran inside to fetch the contract and made Ivan sign without any further delay. He ordered a slap-up meal for his new employee and made him eat and drink to his heart's content. The farmer never forgot the main chance and insisted Ivan go to bed early so he would be quite rested for work the following day. "I don't want you to tire easily and lose your temper," the farmer told him. The following morning the sun rose and the cock crowed. The sun climbed higher and higher, and still Ivan hadn't emerged. Impatiently, the farmer waited for him to appear, and waited, and waited. He couldn't contain his impatience any longer, and crept around to Ivan's bed, when he saw to his horror that the young man was still fast asleep. "Do you think the grass mows itself?" the farmer yelled at him. "Get up at once, it's nearly noon." Ivan yawned and stretched and looked innocently at the farmer. "Are you angry?" he asked. "Oh, no," the farmer assured him. "But you can't stop working. That's our agreement." At long last, Ivan was ready, and the farmer was able to hurry him down to the meadow where all the other workers were already eating their lunch. So Ivan immediately got stuck into the meal with a will. Whenever the farmer started protesting, Ivan would just ask if he was getting angry, and the farmer would have to hastily retract his impatient words. This man had never before experienced such a frustrating wait, but at long last all the other workers concluded their meal and set off for work. Surely now Ivan would do the same, but not a bit of it. He just carried on calmly eating every last delicious morsel, while the farmer stamped and cleared his throat and clicked his tongue. Then appalled, he saw that Ivan, instead of getting up, started to settle down comfortably for an afternoon's rest. "There's nothing like a meal to make me feel sleepy," Ivan told the outraged farmer as he finished off the last little crumb from the meal. "I think I'll take a quick 40 winks to gather strength for all the hard work you want me to do." In front of the farmer's furious gaze, he quietly lay down and pretended to go fast asleep. The afternoon wore on, and still he didn't stir. There was nothing the farmer could do to waken him. Ivan was was enjoying teasing the farmer and seeing his frustration. A sudden thought struck the farmer. "Wake up," he shouted. "You've broken our agreement. You've stopped working." Ivan stood up slowly and said, "I can't have stopped working because I haven't started yet. That's not what our agreement was supposed to mean. You're a lazy good-for-nothing." The farmer turned away in disgust, and Ivan followed him, saying, "I think you've lost your temper." At the farmhouse, dinner guests had arrived. Containing his fury, the farmer had to act the genial host. He delightedly welcomed everybody, insisted on drinking their health, and instructed Ivan to go and kill a goat immediately for their dinner. "What goat?" asked Ivan in bewilderment. "Any you'll find along the path." After such a long and frustrating day, the man was glad to sit down and have a relaxing drink with his friends. But no sooner had he settled down than one of the guests, looking out of the window, cried, "Your new hand's gone mad and slaughtered all your goats." Everyone rushed out, and sure enough, there was Ivan in the yard, beaming proudly and surrounded by a pile of dead goats. Without another word, the farmer ran up to him. "What's the meaning of this?" he bellowed. "You told me to kill any goat along the path," Ivan replied. "As they were all along the path, I thought it best to do exactly as you ordered. Why, you're not angry with me, are you?" Not trusting himself to speak, the farmer just shook his head and turned back to the house, quivering with rage. If he hoped that things would get better, he was very much mistaken. Ivan was the slowest, laziest, hungriest labourer he had ever employed. He certainly had the most enormous appetite the farmer had ever experienced, and did no work to account for it. Nothing the farmer said to him, even if he was called lazybones or good-for-nothing, made him do other than smile sweetly. Because the farmer just had to vent his anger somehow, he grew more and more short-tempered with his other servants. Autumn had never seemed so long in coming to that harassed man. But at long last, he felt he had hit upon a foolproof scheme to get rid of Ivan. He reasoned with his wife. What is the first day of autumn? Why, it's when we see the leaves begin to fall. I think I've hit on a plan to advance the season. The next morning, he took his wife into the nearby woods, and after carefully explaining what he wanted her to do, he helped her climb into a tall tree. She was a large lady, so tree climbing wasn't easy. But eventually, with help from behind and before, she managed to settle down comfortably on the fork of a broad branch, while the farmer went to collect Ivan. He suggested to the boy that they spend the morning shooting in the woods. Ivan was surprised by the farmer's changed manner, but readily agreed, and they strode through looking for likely game until they reached the tree where the farmer's wife was hidden. And strangely enough, leaves began to drift down in front of them. "Good heavens!" the farmer cried in surprise. "Leaves falling already? Well, this must be the first day of autumn, and that means our agreement is over and you are free to leave." Ivan said, "I believe a squirrel caused these leaves to fall," and he took aim right at the place where the farmer's wife cowered. "Don't shoot!" the farmer cried. "That's my wife, not a squirrel." Then turning to Ivan, he continued, "You have wrought havoc with my my life. You don't work, you eat your head off, you slaughtered my goats, now go! The farmer screamed, his wife shouted, get me down from here, and general chaos ensued. It sounds to me as if you're angry, Ivan observed. Admitting defeat, the farmer led the way back to the farmhouse. He wanted Ivan out of his house no matter what it cost him. He went into his own room where he kept his money carefully hidden. It hurt him a great deal to part with even a coin, but he had been driven to distraction by Ivan's woeful behavior. Solemnly, he counted out all the money which, by the terms of the agreement, he owed Ivan. Ivan then said he wanted to pay off Boris's contract also. The farmer agreed and tore up the contract Ivan had signed. Then, just as solemnly, he tore up the contract Boris had signed. I have only behaved this way because of your own bad treatment of us, Ivan told him. If you play fair with your workers, they will work hard for you. You shouldn't have to trick them in this way. The farmer knew he was right and agreed he would behave better in future and treat his workers fairly. As for Boris and Ivan, they were able to buy a small piece of land for themselves with the farmer's payment, and by hard work and careful management, they soon became the richest men in their village. Even after they had made their fortune, they still liked to walk together through the woods. Whenever Ivan saw the green leaves rustling in the trees, he would remember the farmer's unsuccessful attempt to turn summer into autumn, and he would smile to himself.